this is my audience. So millions of people all around the world face discrimination, whether that be gender discrimination or racial discrimination. Everyone experiences some form of discrimination. And there's a form of discrimination that I'm going to talk about that isn't widely talked about today, and that's discrimination against unborn babies. So these unborn babies are a silent generation. They can't stand up for themselves, they can't advocate for themselves, they can't say what they want for their future. It's decided for them, which I feel is completely unfair. So through extensive research, I have found many points of why abortion should be illegal. So abortion has been a very controversial issue today. It has been talked about whether it should be illegal, whether it should be legal, and there's been many points brought up on every single side. Abortion should be illegal because it is unethical to murder a human being. It should also be illegal because it infringes on human rights. And lastly, it violates God's power. So to dive a little deeper into this, it is unethical to murder a human being. So a common question that many ask is, when does human life start? So I found on PubMed that human life starts at the beginning of fertilization. So the embryo protection law, according to PubMed.gov, says, in force as of January 1st, 1991, defines the beginning of life in a medical sense, to wit, the embryo is the fertilized egg cell capable of development already from the time of fertilization, and every cell with the potential to divide and develop into an individual is assumed as an embryo. So basically, this article said that life does start at the beginning of fertilization. So it starts from the beginning, the very beginning. So at no point when you find out you're pregnant, abortion, that baby is actually alive, sorry. So put this into your own perspective. If your mom decided to abort you, you would not be here. You would not be able to experience the many beauties life has to offer or the many trials that life has to offer. You would not grow into the person you are today, and you would not be able to go through God's plan for you, and you would not have God's plan for you, which is a very sad thing. And God is a God of fairness and justness, and if we take away that fairness and justness and violate God's power, that's very wrong. And I will go into violating God's power a little later in my speech, but I'm now going to talk about how it infringes on our human rights. So John Locke had 3 rights that we should not violate, and that's the right to life, land, and liberty. And I'm especially going to emphasize on the right to life. So in this, John Locke, it's in the 14th Amendment and the Declaration of Independence, and we've always respected these 3 rights, the right to life, land, and liberty. And we should not infringe on human rights because these, as we talked about earlier, these babies, they're alive and they're a form of life right at the start of fertilization. This is a silent generation, and we need to advocate for them as they are alive and they need someone to help them and someone to advocate for them because they do not have a say. Diving deeper into how it violates God's power. So in Jeremiah 1:5, he says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." And I love this verse because he knew us before we were in the womb. We're life, and to take that away completely violates and mocks God's power because we have this form of life in our hands and we destroy it, which is a huge sin in God's eyes because thou shalt not murder. God made us all so beautifully and so uniquely, and to take all that beauty and uniqueness away and just for our own selfish reasons and an easy way out is a terrible thing to think about. And I really think that every single person needs to rethink their decisions when deciding to keep the baby or abort the baby. There is also many different alternatives to keeping the baby because we do not have to keep the baby. We can give the baby up for adoption, foster care. There are many different alternatives to how we can have the baby without having to take care of the baby, especially when the mother is very young. It is a scary thing if you're a 15-year-old and you're trying to take care of a baby all by yourself. So there's many different alternatives and adoption. There's many amazing families out there that would love to have a baby. So there's a quote, it's by Arnott Steffen, and he has a quote that I really like. He talks about how all people are created in the image and likeness of God. So I'm going to read that for you really fast. Life is the gift of God, and everyone should enjoy this gift unconditionally. The right to life is based on this horizon that God, as absolute principle and universally unique, is the only source of life, and also only divinity has moral legitimacy and right to end all life. Every human, and implicitly each product of human conception, have the right to life unconditionally. No human is entitled or legitimate to end a form of human life. In these circumstances, abortion is a sin because it contradicts divine order, which is the natural order of the universe. And I really like the part where it says it contradicts divine order, because it does contradict divine order. We're taking the life that God made, the image and likeness of God, we're taking it into our own hands and ending it completely, and ending the plan that God had for that individual. Abortion needs to be stopped. And it needs to be stopped because it infringes on our human rights. It also is unethical to murder a human baby, and it also violates God's power. We need to look outside of ourselves, because babies across the world are unrightfully dying due to new abortion laws and legalizing abortion. We all had the chance to live out our lives, so why should we stop somebody else's? Life is a gift from God. Who are we to say who gets to live and who gets to die? He created all of us so uniquely and individually, and to end that beauty is sickening, and it's a hard choice to make, and it has a lot of consequences to having abortion. So I hope you all can rethink abortion and rethink the legalization that's happening in many states of abortion, and we can all take something from everything that I said, and thank you all for listening.